anything right now.
That's because I was muted.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great.
All right, so sound is good?
Yeah.
Do you have an echo?
No one's talking right now, so.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Beautiful. No echo.
Okay.
Hey, JD, I've lost the thing. Hello, and thank you for joining us on Crucial Conversations about Cognitive Diversity, brought to you by Bridges 2E Media and the 2E Centre for Research and Professional Development. My name is Maria Kennedy, and I have the pleasure of being your host. Thank you all so much for joining our conversation and sharing your insights, your thoughts, and your questions. We really cannot do this without you. I also want to say a special thank you to the team behind the scenes. JT, Stephanie, and John, thank you for all your hard work, your expertise, and your patience. So these are the reasons that this webcast happens. Thank you all for completing our welcome poll. So we have quite a variety of people with us today. And so thank you so much for letting us know who we are. So we have some gifted people, some 2Es, we have lots of educators and therapists. So before I introduce our distinguished guest, I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips. So there are two ways that you can communicate with us. The chat is for you to share your thoughts and comments about what is being discussed. So please feel free to share and comment. There is also a Q&A where you can write your questions for Dr. Kaufman. Some of your questions will be answered in the Q&A and some will be answered live by Dr. Kaufman. You can write your questions in the Q&A at any time. However, the sooner you submit them, the more likely we will have time to answer them. There is also a live transcription. So if you would like to use it, click the CC button on the bottom of your screen. Before I introduce my guest, I would like to share with you a little bit about him and why he is so eminently qualified to discuss today's topic, how 2E learners can self-actualize. Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman is a humanistic psychologist exploring the depths of human potential. Dr. Kaufman received a PhD in cognitive science from Yale University and has taught at Columbia, NYU, the University of Pennsylvania, and elsewhere. He hosts the Psychology Podcast, the #1 psychology podcast in the world, and is author and/or editor of 9 books, including Transcend, the new science of self-actualization. Wired to Create, Unraveling the Mysteries of the Creative Mind with Caroline Gregori, and Ungifted, Intelligence Redefined. In 2015, Business Insider named him one of 50 groundbreaking scientists who are changing the way we see the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce you to our esteemed guest and my very dear friend, Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman.
Thanks, Maria. So great to be here. And you've been doing such an amazing job as host of this series. I've been watching them and been so proud of you.
I learned everything I know from you.
It can't be true, but bless you. Bless you.
So we are so blessed to have you with us today. I feel really super honored that you are so busy, but you're making time to chat with us. I remember when hearing you do a keynote at Bridges and literally being brought to tears. I'm just so impressed by your ability to stay in the struggle, to overcome all of those things that you've had to overcome, and still to remain so upbeat and energetic and positive. Now, I don't know if everybody knows your story, but would you, just share a little bit about that early struggle for you? How you went and defied what educators thought you were capable of.
Yeah, I could do that briefly. I also want to encourage people to write things in the chat box so we know that you're out there and that you're part of this, and we're kind of all in this together. So I'd love to see some comments. I know this is yeah, I remember in season 1, I remember it was a quiet group of participants, but I want to encourage you to please join in. Well, personally, as a very young kid, I was just always fascinated with individual differences and why people differ from each other, and why who are these kids in the gifted room? Why they put me in the special ed room? I was always very trying to understand, what was going on, and my own friends in special ed, I felt like they were capable of so much more than the teachers were giving them credit for, even their parents were giving them credit for. I remember going over to their house. I was friends with them and telling their mom, Mark can do do you know what he can do on the computer? Does anyone see that? So just very young, I felt like an advocate for quirky, neurodiverse kids, although I didn't have a language for it. I was personally put in special ed because of a central auditory processing disorder. Just had a lot of fluid. I was essentially deaf the first 3 years of my life, but teachers thought that my delay in responding was an indication of me being stupid, as opposed to just couldn't hear anything. It was simply that. So yeah, I it's kind of a long story, but long story short, I I went many years I was in special ed all the way till 9th grade, until, most of my friends started to in like high school, and then later in middle school, most of my friends were gifted ed, and I felt more of a resonance with them, and felt just like something was missing, like I was capable of more. There was a teacher who was a special ed teacher who was like subbing for our regular teacher, and she just took me aside after class and asked me like why I was still there. She saw my frustration, and she really inspired me. I've actually been Facebook messaging with her recently, see how she's doing. Joyce Jewell. Yeah, she just asked me, what are you still doing there? And I think I had been wanting someone to just ask me that question, and it really inspired me to take myself out of special ed and to mainstream classes, because I was in all remedial classes at the time, and just curious to see what I was capable of, and realized quickly that I was actually capable of learning, and I loved it. I loved learning, and kept uh, I kept reaching higher and higher levels, just more out of intellectual curiosity. Like, wait, what am I capable of? you know, because I didn't know, that I was capable of anything.
Right.
So I just kept trying things, and fell in love with some topics, and I fell in love with singing, with opera, with musicals, acting, in musicals and stuff, and yeah, and I applied to Carnegie Mellon for psychology and opera, and I got rejected from the psychology program, so I went in for opera, and well, I transferred in through the back door once I got there into psychology, and ended up graduating Phi Beta Kappa in psychology. So
Awesome.
let this be a lesson to someone out there that, just because if you get rejected for a particular major, doesn't mean you can't grow up to host the #1 podcast in the world in that topic.
Exactly.
That's all I'd say to that.
You're a living example of exactly that. What can be done when the door's slammed in your face, you go in by a different entrance. So
Yeah,
I
that's
I think, yeah, I think that's superb. So I know we have lots of parents who are listening to us today. And what advice would you give them for how to support their children who possibly don't know? Oh, actually, let me go back. Probably the first question that we should discuss is what exactly we mean by self-actualization.
right.
Can you give us the cliff noted version on that so that we're all on the same page?
I'd be delighted to, and let me even back up a little further, if I may, to
Of course.
my definition of intelligence, because something that bothered me was that we used a lot of our metrics of intelligence. We relied on these kinds of standardized tests and kind of abstract knowledge divorced from the person's own personal experience. So in my first book for general public, called Ungifted: Intelligence Redefined, I put forth a theory of personal intelligence that did not ignore the ability dimension. It wasn't just another multiple intelligences theory. I wanted to integrate the large literature on intelligence testing and talents, but put it within a context of a personal theory where ability and engagement are constantly having a dynamic interplay in the pursuit of personal goals or dreams, a child's dreams. So I really wanted to get personal about it. I would say in a lot of ways that theory was a real precursor to my work today in self-actualization. Although I didn't have the language for it then, I hadn't even made much contact with Maslow or humanistic psychology when I was writing on Gifted. If I had, maybe I would have used more of their language, but I kind of created my own language just based on my own intuition. But when I encountered that field of humanistic psychology and notions of self-actualization, I realized that's what I was trying to grapple with. That's what I was trying to get at. Was how can we shift education environments from a focus on standards and comparing one person to the next person, and having a self-actualizing schools where we take seriously the individual developmental trajectory and journey of the child, of the individual child, regardless of everyone else around them. So yeah, my definition of intelligence is deeply intertwined with my current work in self-actualization, and I hope that those linkages are clear to people.
I think that's awesome. So, so then for parents trying to encourage their children to self-actualize, is there a cheat sheet? Is there a way that they need to be approaching encouraging their children, or is there language that they should be using? What can we do to help empower our parents to be more advocates for their children and to help their children self-advocate?
Yeah, it's a wonderful, you ask really wonderful questions as always. And there's 21 parents here. I saw that 87% were parents. By the way, these are non-overlapping sets. I'm sure a lot of these parents are gifted themselves.
I would think so.
I mean, there's such thing as genetics, so there's a probability that if their child is gifted, that the parent isn't dumb.
Right.
So, but the idea of self-actualization in your child, I think, is less a matter of hacks and what you should be doing, and more of how can you get out of the child's way. I think that that's more of the question. Parents feel the need to be really, really deeply involved and make decisions for the child and make sure they're protected at all times. And there's a lot of coddling that can happen. But I think that self-actualization is more an unfolding than something you control, or something that um, you have to force in any sort of way. So, the child is unfolding their developmental trajectories, and things happen at different times. You don't want to rush things. There's genes that might not get in sync. I've written about this, that maybe the child earlier on doesn't appear very gifted, but later on things become in sync, and they start to require more advanced resources, or they find a fascination in something because they make an encounter with this particular stimulus. So first of all, you have to, I would say patience. Number one, patience. Don't compare yourself to, the little girl down the street. But Mary's gifted. Why isn't my child gifted yet? Just calm down.
Oh yeah.
Mary is on Mary's trajectory. In 5 years, Mary might not be gifted anymore. Who knows?
That's true.
Mary might not need those resources. But look, everyone's on their own timeline here. And I think having a lot of patience is really important, but also getting out of the way, but watching, and giving them as much stimulus as possible, as much encounters with potential triggers that they'll be like, oh wow, I really deeply resonate with this. I really have a knack for this. So I do think, giving them lots of options. My mom signed me up for every single sport there is, and acting classes and painting classes. God bless her. I really did so many kinds of things when I was younger, although there was such a divorcing between that and my mainstream school experience, which was interesting. So maybe also a tighter integration between after school activities and the kind of potential you inform their teachers about. Like the teacher should be in on this too, not just the parent. The parent and teach. I think parent teacher co-facilitation is so incredibly important. There's a really wonderful chapter about that in my edited volume. I edited a volume called Twice Exceptional that had some Bridges Academy folks. Actually, we feature Bridges Academy as a great model for TUI in that book. But there's a great chapter in that book on, it takes a team, and what does that look like to coordinate with various different aspects where everyone cares about the self-actualization of the child. I'm trying to work on this. I'm trying to develop a program right now, a self-actualization coaching program for educators,
Cool.
so that entire school systems, from the administrators to the principal, to the art teacher, to the math teacher, to the parents, all are well educated in the main principles of self-actualization, so that they're all talking the same language. To me, that's a dream of mine.
Oh yeah, sign me up. That sounds awesome.
Got a scholarship, Maria.
Ah, yes, please. Yes, please. I love to learn, so that truly would be amazing. So, how long before that dream do you think will manifest so that we can all sign up and get ourselves educated?
I would hope sometime in the next couple years.
Okay.
We're first creating the a self-actualization coaching program for adults, for not just educators, but for anyone who wants to learn the main self-actualization coaching principles. But the natural next step after that is for teachers. So
Nice.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
So you mentioned like the self-actualization principles. Can you briefly summarize a couple of those for us so that we know what we should be looking out for?
wow. I wish I came prepared with a little deck on that. I let me look this up. I have a whole list of the main sort of principles of wholeness or self-actualization. You know what? Open my book.
Sweet.
I have a whole appendix.
Oh.
So what happened?
So Lisa says,
Oh.
oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said her name, but somebody says, as you proceed today, I'm listening for college student chapter of life. Thank you. It's all so rich.
Oh,
See, so,
love that.
and I
love
yeah, and somebody else is like me is also excited. I love hearing that there is a coaching program coming. See, so we're all ready, Scott. We're all ready to sign up and
That's
take the
so
mission forward.
that's so exciting. Tell people they can to just sign up for the mailing list. The free, there's very little spam. We only put out, we try to be very thoughtful about what we put on that mailing list in terms of the upcoming programs and stuff, but you can sign up by going there. So
Is that your mailing list on your #1 podcast?
No, no, the Center for the Science of Human Potential.
Center for the Science of Human Potential. Okay, we'll make sure that we add that so that people can get that.
So maybe it would be worth me giving about a 10 minutes presentation.
That would be awesome.
No, we didn't plan this, but I have no problem with being spontaneous.
I know, and you're awesome, and we love listening.
Thank you. Can you see?
Yes, that's beautiful.
I feel like I need to make that tighter. There you go. Okay. So the as the purpose of what it means to be a self-actualization coach, and I'd love to see a shift in education for teachers to think of themselves from teachers to self-actualization coaches, where they would help students who are feeling unfulfilled in their creative potential to find a life that works for them in their own style, using the tools of the latest science of human potential. The self-actualization coach believes in the client's potential and helps facilitate their growth and self-actualization through a highly coactive process. Self-actualization coaching is inspirational, human-centered, and empowering. So the core principles would be, help the child strive to balance their basic needs. And that includes the safety needs, like needs for safety. Does the child feel safe? Does the child feel connected? Does the child feel a sense of healthy self-esteem, self-efficacy, that they are making their own choices, that they can accomplish their goals? But also growth needs, such as, can they explore the world? Do they have the need for purpose, the need for love? Do they have opportunities for the all experience, for flow and transcendent experiences? Also, I think it's really important, especially for 2E kids, to realize that it's important to accept their whole self, not just their best self. A really important first step towards wholeness is recognizing that we all contain multitudes. 2E kids are unique in lots of regards, but they're not unique in the fact that they have challenges and gifts. Like there's no human on earth that has zero gifts and zero challenges in life.
Right.
So
Weird.
it's usually more on talking about extremes. So 2E, we're talking about like 2 standard deviation above the mean in like both sides, which does create unique challenges. But it is important to recognize that we all contain multitudes, and the idea of the real self, I think, can be really confusing for 2E kids, and kind of just doing away with the notion of the real self, and having them accept their whole self as a route to growth. Principle 3 would having them become aware of their inner conflicts. We have lots of different personalities within each of us, and we don't all have multiple personalities disorder, but we all have multiple personalities. I'm sure Maria in the conversations mode is different than Maria, late at night, watching Netflix, like drinking a glass of wine, like it's probably a different Maria. So, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely.
And that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it. Like being aware, and that doesn't conflict. But there's we can have inner conflicts. We can have 2E kids can have inner conflicts where on the one hand they really deeply want to connect with others, but on the other hand, maybe they're more gifted in certain areas than other kids. That kind of puts them the school system has put them above others or below others, and there's just all sorts of conflicts that I think helping these kids resolve through a coaching process could be really helpful. I think also looking out for a real lopsided development is really important. In what ways are 2E kids developing? Maybe we're focusing so much on the remediation that they're so focused on that their gifts aren't being paid enough attention to. So really looking out for a balance in both of the 2E sides of the equation, not that you're remediating and helping them thrive. Also helping them create the best version of themselves. Because I think to a certain extent, people can change their personality. People can really become who they want to be, even if it's not who they are. It's not the size of myself, who I am. It's not 100% matched up to who I want to be. But I think that we can create that over creating new habits, helping them create new habits, helping them, really listening to their dreams and desires as well, and really paying attention to that. Also having them to trust themselves more. I think a lot of 2E kids don't really trust themselves. They're not really deeply in touch with their real felt experience. A lot of them have a lot of what Karen Horn and I call tyrannical shoulds. They act in sort of ways that they feel like they should be acting, as opposed to who they really are and their own real felt organismic valuing experience, which is an expression that Carl Rogers said. The OVP, you down with your OVP?
Your pneumonia.
Down with the OVP, it's like technical term or organismic valuing process. That's what he called it. But the OVP is, like, are you in touch with your real experiences and not diminuting them or not pushing them out of the way, but even as a parent, taking them seriously in your child, like anxiety, feelings of even other just real felt needs, and making sure those things are being met. That's really important to becoming a fully functioning person, as Carl Rogers put it. For Rogers, the definition of psychological adjustment rests on the notion that mental health exists when all the relevant experiences of a person can be integrated into a coherent and flexible self-concept. The fully functioning person is open to experiences. They drop their defenses. They savor, they have mindfulness flow, they have existential living, they have trust, like I just said, in the OVP. They're down with their OVP, and this results in I should come up with a music video. Shouldn't I, Maria? On the OVP, that would be the nerdiest hip hop video in the history of hip hop. But anyway, these 3 results in a sense of freedom and enhanced creativity. This is one of my favorite quotes from Carl Rogers. It seems to me that the individual moves towards being, knowingly and acceptingly the process which they inwardly and actually are. They are not trying to be more than they are with the attendant feelings of insecurity or bombastic defensiveness. They're not trying to be less than they are with the attendant feelings of guilt or self-deprecation. They are increasingly listening to the deepest recesses of their physiological and emotional being and find themselves increasingly willing to be with greater accuracy and depth that self which they most truly are. Imagine if we actually cared about that in the education system.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be so amazing. And these, they actually created an OVP scale, like a psychometrically valid OVP scale. Things like, I know things are right for me. I get what I need for my life, the decisions I take. Maybe just like checking in with 2E kids and just like, discussing these kinds of questions with them, checking in with them. What that, to me, that would be a delightful way of being a self-actualization coach. As a parent, there's no reason why you can't see yourself as a self-actualization coach. Researchers have found that these kinds of items, it's correlated with greater happiness in life, well-being, and a sense of vitality in life. And then finally, I think, instilling in children, well, not finally, actually the second to last principle, but I think instilling in children that happiness is not the goal. If a child doesn't feel happy, that doesn't mean they failed in life. Teach them to strive for growth and teach them that the happiness can come along for the ride. Don't try to change them into be something else that they're not as well. Maslow said that self-actualization means we try to make a rose into a good rose rather than seek to change roses into lilies. It necessitates a pleasure in the self-actualization of a person who may be quite different from yourself. It even implies an ultimate respect and acknowledgement of the sacredness and uniqueness of each kind of person. And like that's my jam. It's my jam. And then the last one is harnessing the power of your dark side. Now, maybe don't encourage teenagers too much to harness the power of their dark side. I remember my dark side when I was like 15. But it is important. There's an important concept called the daimonic that Roland May, the humanistic psychologist, talked about, which is, what is that thing within you that has the power to overtake the whole person? He really didn't believe that humans are fundamentally good or fundamentally evil, but are bundles of both evil and good potentialities. He defined the daimonic as whatever potentiality within you has the power to overtake the person. And integrating the daimonic into the personality can result in really great creativity. What in this 2E kid is overpowering the rest of them, in an unhealthy way, and how can you integrate it more within them? If the daimonic is not integrated, it can take over the total personality, and destructive activity can be the result. Look, that's what happened to me when I was in middle school. In special ed, I felt powerless. That feeling of powerlessness was my daimonic, and it resulted in destruction activity. I became a world famous computer hacker. And I, did illegal things through computer hacking and pirating computer games. So that wasn't good. It was fun. I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of fun. But looking back on it, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? But that's what it was. It was the daimonic, was not integrated. Now I don't have that drive. I don't have the drive to be a criminal anymore. I integrated that drive within me, but it also gives me great compassion for people who maybe even so-called quote problem children. You know what I mean? It gives me great compassion for kids that are acting out. They're acting out for a reason. Okay, let's help them. Let's help them act out and for a good reason, as opposed for a bad reason. May believed that the healthy integration of hostility, aggression, and anger was essential for growth, not by avoiding the potential for evil, but by directly confronting it. George Valiant, famous Harvard psychoanalyst, believes we can transform our defenses from thunderstorms to rainbows. And this is, I'll leave you on this before we continue our conversation. How can we help 2E kids transform their defenses from thunderstorms to rainbows? As George says, the maladaptive defenses of adolescence can evolve into the virtues of maturity. If we use defenses well, we are deemed mentally healthy, conscientious, funny, creative, and altruistic. If we use them badly, the psychiatrist diagnoses us ill, our neighbors label us unpleasant, and society brands us immoral. So let's help kind of tip things in the most healthy direction for these kids who are very
Right.
complex whole people. So, okay. Thanks for listening. I'm glad that you allowed me to do an impromptu presentation. I wasn't planning on doing that, and I just made up a lot of that on the spot relevant to the 2E audience, but I hope it was helpful.
That was amazing. You can think on your feet, and that's just phenomenal. That really is. So you definitely are the man, SBK. Most definitely. So yeah, I think that was really definitely very poignant for us. As a mom, I'm going, oh yeah, coddling, smuggling, oh, but it's really hard. You want the very, very best for your children. And often we try to prevent them having any failure. But as I've been learning, without the failure or without the struggle, then there isn't growth. And so, if you don't let your child fall off their bike and then get back up and know that they're alive, then they never take any chances and then possibly miss out on those other opportunities, maybe to fly. Because if we won't ride a bike, then we won't move to the next level, which might get us on a plane.
That's right.
So
that's right.
so but your mother was amazing. She put you in all kinds of activities. And I love that you said that although yours weren't quite linked to academics, you're definitely encouraging parents to link in with what's going on at school. I know at Bridges, one of the things that we say to our parents is that we want them to be very much part of the educational process for their kids. And so they should take them out on excursions and do things with them that they can come back and share with their friends. So I definitely feel that probably then does need to be more conversation between parents and teachers about what's going on and encouraging. Maybe teachers can give parents some ideas of some activities that would be useful. Sometimes, though, there is that conversation about over scheduling our kids. So I know you did lots of things. Did you ever have an issue with that? How often were you doing extra activities? Is there a good formula that you can recommend? Should there be 2 days that they don't do, or is every day of the week something going on too much? Overkill?
Well, I think ultimately, once they start to hone in a little bit more on what they really truly love and what they would like to put more of their energy and focus in, I think depth over breadth is a lot more important. Earlier on, I think, when there's kind of like a blank slate in a way, kind of exposing them to as many different kinds of activities as possible is okay. To the extent to which you keep a very clear mind on how much they are becoming overwhelmed. You don't want, if they're start having breakdowns, you don't want to push them and too much. But I think that as you start to move into middle school, high school, and they start to hone, I think that being able to prune outside things is really helpful, so they can really have more time to do the things they truly love to do. I mean, they're going to be so exhausted from being in school all day, and you want to make sure that that they can still have a good balance between all the schoolwork and stuff they don't really want to do, and maybe one thing that they love to do, and then give them as much balance as possible, and letting them focus on that, I think, is really important, and not over scheduling them at a certain point.
It's beautiful. We have a question that follows on from what I said, which is really great. So it says, I don't believe that coddling and allowing kids to make mistakes so that they can grow need to be mutually exclusive. I don't think that we can spoil our kids with love. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Can I read the question? Is that
sure? It's in the chat. It's in the bottom of the chat.
I don't believe that coddling and allowing kids to make mistakes so they can grow need to be. I don't think we can spoil our kids with love. Well, wow. I mean, yeah, the question is, can you ever have too much love? Um, love is different than coddling in my view. See, love is freedom. Love is offering a space for a person to be free to discover themselves and to be themselves, become themselves. To me, that's love. So I don't view them as mutually exclusive. Coddling is not love. That's control, as far as I'm concerned.
Nice.
So yeah.
Thank you. Another question that we have, is the term overachiever really an accurate term for a child who wants to do it all?
Yeah, I don't like the phrase overachiever, and I hope I didn't use that word. I don't believe I did.
I don't think you did.
Thank you.
I
hope
think it's just a term that comes up.
Yeah.
And so the question is that really
I don't like that word. No,
right?
no, I would like to eradicate that word from the lexicon, and I would like to eradicate underachiever as well. I have written about this, I wrote about this in Ungifted. To me, when you have the idea of gifted underachievers, that means you also logically have ungifted overachievers.
Mm,
And that concept doesn't make any sense to me.
me either.
Also a god insult to a person. Let's say they're doing amazing things in life and their IQ score is not above 120. You say, well, you're a very ungifted overachiever over there. It's like, what the hell? Why that doesn't even make any sense? It's mean too. It's just mean. And then the gifted underachiever, you say that's also kind of mean how we treat them, but you should be doing all this amazing stuff, putting that kind of pressure on a child. Just
Right.
holy cow. So let them unfold in their own time, with facilitation, with coaching, but not control. Coaching is not control. Coaching is facilitation, and when they're ready, they'll be ready.
Awesome. I like that. Coaching is not control.
Oh,
Coaching is facilitation. I definitely think that as educators, maybe we need to change our title to
yeah,
coaches, because coaches are definitely all about bringing out the best in
yeah.
their players, right? And I think maybe as educators, maybe that's the lens that we should be looking at, rather than trying to shove all of our students down this one narrow tube so that they all come out the same. Maybe we could start exploring what really is in the best interest of each of our children.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm a public high school educator, and in principle, accepting your whole self, many of my GT students may want to shed
Yeah.
the GT side of them. They don't want to stand out or feel different than their peers who are not GT. Any wisdom or advice to speak to these students to accept who they are? Gifted.
Well, now this is a very, very interesting question. Because why we don't need to force. So gifted is it can be an identity as much as it can be a description of a need, right?
Yeah.
And there's no reason in principle why the two have to be the same thing. Why we can't help address the need without forcing them to integrate it into the core of their identity. Not everyone wants it to be a part of their identity. And actually, I think that's fine. I mean, I'm reading between the lines, Deborah. The way I interpret the question is, Deborah is like, how can we force them to accept they're gifted? And I don't like that approach. With all due respect, Deborah, I think that really, being allowing them to choose how they want to integrate that into their identity should be up to the child. And the idea of like, well, you need to accept who you truly, it sounds very Spider-Man, like Spider-Man, accept your destiny. Look, to be gifted doesn't mean, it means a certain thing. It means a certain thing in a school system, and it creates a need, probably for more advanced curriculum or a particular talent. We can address that without the gifted label, in my view, or even the gifted identity. Now, there are some children where it's very important to them to make it part of their identity, and I think that's fine too. I think that it's just should be up to the child how they want to do that.
Nice. Ooh. So we're empowering our children to make that decision for themselves, whether they
Absolutely.
want to almost, I'm now envisaging it almost as coming out. So are we coming out as gifted,
Yeah.
or we're remaining secretive about our gifts? Either one is perfectly fine,
Yeah.
and we should embrace both, right?
It's a really good analogy. Yeah, yeah. No, I've never heard of that analogy before, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it just might not be what some kids want to focus on about themselves. Maybe they want to focus on a different part of themselves, Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So again, we're going to empower our children to make those decisions for themselves.
Autonomy. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, autonomy. Oh, I love that.
The need
I
for
love that.
autonomy.
The need for autonomy. So, oh my goodness. Oh, time is disappearing. I'm going to lose my time with you. Please don't leave me, Scott. Don't go.
I won't. I won't.
You can't.
I'll stay here all day with you, Maria.
Will you? Okay. Dinner's on you then, right?
I didn't say that. I'm joking.
But we definitely should be hanging out in person and
Well, I
maybe
can't wait.
get some of these wonderful people who are joining us today to come hang out with us too.
Yeah.
So maybe we can figure out a way to do that. So we've looked at some needs for parents. We've looked at some needs for 2E people in general to be encouraged to self-actualize, or to be allowed to determine where they are on their journey. One of my mentors talks about our life being a journey, and you mentioned that the different spots that our children are at. So that Fred may not be at age 7 at the same place in his journey as Mary, who is flying high and is the poster child for being amazing. But in a couple of years, Fred may have overtaken Mary because Fred's journey is completely different. I love the notion of us all having to encourage and be supportive. Is there anything we can do to help our educators? So we want them to be coaches. Is there something that they could do tomorrow? So in their class with your students, is there some verbiage that they could definitely be using to interact with their students? I know you showed us some words earlier on, a couple of sentences. Is there like 2 out of those you could say, hey, educators, use that and help encourage your students to self-actualize?
Great question. What words are you referring to though?
So on the slides, there were, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one. There was like 2 or 3 sentences talking about what people could be thinking of when talking.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think one thing to do tomorrow is just focus on strengths in your classroom. So have students take the VIA character strength survey and find out every single child in the class what their top 3 character strengths are, and post it on the wall. Post it in the classroom, every single child in the class and their top 3 character strengths. So it's salient to everyone else in the class. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that in school, where we focus on strengths and we showcase each other's strengths, so that people are aware of, the uniqueness of each child and what they can offer in the classroom. That's what that's something it'll take the child 10 minutes to complete the VIA character strength survey. So that'd be one thing I would immediately do.
I
Or they
love.
could take my self-actualization test. I was just being modest and giving you someone else's test, but you could take my test too and come up with the top 3 sources of self-actualization that I created. I'll put a link to that
I
test.
was going to say, how can they all get hold of that? Because I think we should all do it.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone in this room should take that test.
So I think so. I think even as adults, we tend to not realize what we're really good at.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I guess, sometimes when the weather's gray and we're all tired, we forget that we have talents, and so I think maybe if we all took the test and we all had that on our bedroom wall or on the bathroom or on the refrigerator, so that as you stepped out each day, you could be reminded that you are a uniquely created human.
Yes. No, this is very true. This is very true.
This is
That was very well put, Maria.
Oh, yeah, you like that?
I did very much.
Thank you. So, oh, wonderful. So somebody says that they love the VIA test and they are excited to hear about the self-actualization test. So, hi, here's a great test for everybody. How about you all take the self-actualization test and then email me your results? crucialconversations@2e. I don't remember, but I know an amazing person called Stephanie who can type my email into the chat for me.
I did put the link to the test in the chat window, though. I don't know if this person.
Yes.
Right above.
It's right above there. So so that's beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. So crucialconversations@2ecenter.org. I would love to hear about everybody's strengths, so feel free to email them to me. So this is a question of not only accepting oneself, but also a question of the social milieu. If the social school milieu rejects giftedness, it's fine for the student to keep it out of the school and let it come out in other safer circles of their lives. Unfortunately, the student has to deal with the school as it is, and not all schools have healthy social milieux. So, yeah. So that's cool. Absolutely awesome.
Gifted education is under attack these days, in a lot of ways. There are a lot of inequities in gifted education as well. I hold multiple things in my mind at the same time as true. I'm an advocate for gifted education, but I also think gifted education has a lot of inequities that need to be addressed. And we need to have a lot of humility in the field of gifted education, that we're leaving a lot of kids out of the table. But I don't think that means we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater either. So I don't believe in just cutting all gifted programs just because there are inequities, as a lot of schools are doing, is in New York right now, for instance. I'd like to point people to a podcast chat I have coming out next Thursday. So not this Thursday, but Thursday the 23rd, with Joy Lawson Davis and Deb Douglas on underrepresentation in gifted education. That was a very powerful episode. Addresses some things we talked about today, and you also get to hear me cry as I did on the show. It was a very emotional episode for me personally, but it was also a very special episode. Joy Lawson Davis is amazing, and I love you know her, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
we love her, just like we love you. So we love you both. You're both amazing. Scott, do you have the link to that podcast? Can you pop it in the chat for us? Or can you send it me later and I can send it out?
Yeah, it'll be out next Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. It's not even out yet. So
okay.
But you mean the link to just the podcast in general?
Right.
Yeah, thepsychologypodcast.com. I'll write that down.
Yeah.
So someone wrote, Dr. Davis is a powerhouse. Yes, I agree. I agree. I'll tell her that's how she was described.
Yeah. So, Scott, we have 2 minutes left with you. Any parting words from you? But just before I let you give us your parting words, so the psychologypodcast.com, please make sure that you check that out next week Thursday, so not tomorrow the 16th, but the following Thursday. And Scott, I will definitely be listening with my tissues, because I know if you're crying, then I'm going to cry too.
Yeah,
So.
it's a really emotional episode. But people are welcome to listen to this week's episode as well if they want. It's just with someone else. It's George Carlin's daughter, Kelly Carlin, and that's also a powerful episode. She's doing a lot to empower women. So yeah.
Oh, that we should definitely all be listening to that. I will be tuning in tomorrow.
Well, I really hope this was helpful to people. Yeah, I want to just thank everyone for attending.
Most definitely. It has been a delight to chat with you today, Dr. Kaufman. We've all learned so much from you. My deepest thanks to you again for taking the time to share with us. I think we all have some work to do, because we're going to go and take your test, and we're then going to take action, so we need to use it. Thank you all so much for being part of today's crucial conversation about cognitive diversity, how 2 e-learners can self-actualize. It has been a pleasure helping you all find answers to your questions. I hope that you are now inspired to use the recommendations from our esteemed guest, Dr. Kaufman. If they make a difference for you and your family, please email me and share. Our email is crucialconversations@2ecenter.org. You will see a short survey pop up on your screens. If you could complete it, I would be very, very grateful, and so would the team. Your input about the conversations you would like to have in the future is vital to keeping this webcast valuable for you. I cannot believe that 2021 is almost over. When it started, we were all full of hope and expectations. Have an enjoyable holiday season. Eat more than you should. Laugh more than you have done before, and rest when you can. I hope that 2022 will bring you all good health, wealth, and happiness. We will resume our crucial conversations about cognitive diversity on January 19th. My guest will be Jackson Kramer, a former Bridges Academy student who is now a cognitive behavioral psychotherapist and trainee clinical psychologist in the UK. So make sure that you join me.
Thanks everyone, but thank you, Maria.